I'm flying this kite and it's going up and down and all around, I'm controlling it the best that I could. And the next thing I know, I hear one of the girls yell behind me, "Bear, bear." And I look over and all of a sudden I'm looking in the eyes of a polar bear and it is charging directly at me. Now, this was like an out-of-body experience because at that point, my primal fear response kicked in and I instantly turned and started running. We all experience fear and we are going to have a natural primal response to fear, especially if you're charged by a wild animal. But in this modern world, we feel that same fear with some modern challenges. We have a fear of not being good enough. We have a fear of public speaking. We have a fear of relationships. There's so many fears out there that are holding us back. And I would love to see people see that fear as a challenge. Fear's never going to go away. I'm not fearless by any count, but maybe fear is something that you'll actually enjoy. Because when you feel that fear and you can find the courage to push through it, that's where you're going to find confidence. That's where you're going to succeed. And that's where you're going to win and find success in life no matter what you're doing.
This is Alone and Unafraid. Welcome back to Alone and Unafraid, where we explore the intersections of everyday life, mental health, and mindset with ordinary people who have or are now facing incredible challenges. My name is Thad King, and I'm your host. We've got our co-host with us today, the one and only Tyler Huckett.
Hi.
What's up, buddy?
Oh, nothing. Yeah.
So on today's episode of Alone and Afraid, we're thrilled to welcome Jen Adrenajen Milton. She's an Australian kite surfing and snow kiting champion. I don't think I'm saying that right, and she's a true adventurer. Jen is known for her heart-stopping stories and incredible resilience, from escaping a polar bear in Alaska to making comeback in competitive kite surfing at the age of 48 after major spinal surgery, spending months each year promoting extreme sports in Alaska. Jen has coached countless individuals to embrace fear, push their limits, and rediscover the thrill of adventure. Her unique insights into resilience, determination, and fearlessness have made her a sought-after speaker, captivating audiences worldwide and leaving them inspired to tackle challenges with renewed vigor. Jen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Tad and Tyler, for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
I think when I first saw I saw Adrenajen, and Tyler and I were like, yeah, we got to talk to her, because anybody that has a nickname like that is
perfect.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. So if everybody can probably hear, you're an Aussie. How did you? Tyler and I had this question about: are there mountains in Australia? Because I've been to Australia and I don't remember seeing like skiable mountains. Are there skiable mountains?
Yeah,
in Australia?
there's definitely mountains in Australia, but most people travel down to Australia to go to our beautiful beaches, right? But I was born in Canberra, which is actually the capital city of Australia, and about 2.5 hours away are the Snowy Mountains. And from about June till October, the Snowy Mountains are covered in snow. And my parents were keen skiers, so my brother and I are so lucky. We've been skiing since we were about 2, and we've spent a lot of time in the Australian Snowy Mountains.
So there are mountains in Australia called the Snowy Mountains, and since it's down under, our summers are your winters, and so I did not know that. I flew. What's the mountains to the west of Sydney? The Blue Mountains, is that what they're called?
That's right. We're very literal down in Australia. The Blue Mountains is where we go hiking, and they're beautiful with lots of blue waterfalls. And then you go to the Snowy Mountains, which are also in New South Wales and crossing the border into Victoria. And we have about 12 ski resorts, believe it or not. And Aussies love to ski. There's over 30,000 Australians that actually travel in our summer, your winter, over to the Northern Hemisphere to ski. Yeah, we just love it.
You grew up in, was it New South Wales, on the border between Victoria and New South Wales?
Well, Canberra, I was born in Canberra, the capital
Canberra.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually called the ACT, the Australian Capital Territory. So it's like a little mini state that is in the middle of New South Wales.
Yeah. 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 And so the snowy mountains are where you go to ski, and the blue mountains are where you go to hike. And I've been to the blue mountains, and it is gorgeous and beautiful. Australia is such a beautiful country, and I really enjoyed. I was there for about 30 days and enjoyed. And the one thing I thought about Australians and Americans, I feel like culturally we're like cut from the same cloth. There a lot of similarities. I didn't realize that, at least in Sydney, that NASCAR, like American stock car racing, is got a fan base in Australia. Is that a thing?
It is a thing. I mean, that's the thing that Aussies and the Americans have in common is we're super adventurous and we love our sports. And NASCAR and the Grand Prix racing that they have in some of the cities. I've actually been lucky enough to work at the Gold Coast Grand Prix many years ago. It's huge. We're into all sorts of sport, everything from cricket and footy and skiing. And I'm so lucky that my parents actually had a sports store from when I was born. So every winter we'd be into skiing, and then in the summertime there'd always be some new sport coming in, whether it was skateboards or rollerblades or tennis or windsurfers. My brother and I just got to try every single new sport that came out. I mean, how lucky are we as little kids?
That's like a kid's dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
Man.
Sure is.
So it's interesting. You do kite surfing and kite skiing, and that's kind of a relatively new thing. We're on the east coast of Florida, and kite surfing is really big here. And we live off the Indian River Lagoon, and depending on which way the wind's blowing, you can just go. There's causeways that will block the wind, so you can go on the leeward side and have calm water, but still get the wind that's up high. So it's a really big sport here. How did you get into kite surfing? Like, what was that? How did that come to pass?
Well, as I mentioned, my parents had a sports store, and when I got to about the age of 18 or 19, snowboarding was coming, into fashion. But the skiers and the snowboarders really didn't get along. So it was very difficult for mum and dad in their retail store to have both skis and snowboards. So we made a decision that we'd open a separate store that was sort of more adrenaline based for all the young people. And I was going to go there and manage and run that store. And we called it Adrenaline Sports, which is one of the reasons why I got my nickname Adrenajen. And every year we would go to these trade shows, and the wholesalers would present us with the latest sports. And I remember going to a presentation on looking at all the latest snowboards and snowboard boots, and the guy said, "Oh, check this out, Jen. You might like this. You've grown up sailing and windsurfing." And he showed me a picture of one of the first ever kiteboarding photos, and I just went, "Wow, that looks amazing." It was the latest, it was the greatest, no one had seen it before. And I had to have one in my store, Adrenaline Sports. You've got to have at least one of the latest products to put on the wall to get people excited. So I just ordered one of those kites, and that thing nearly killed me. Oh my God. Back then, they weren't very safe, and I had no lessons. There were no schools around. And I remember taking this kite down to the grass in front of Parliament House in Canberra and thinking, "Oh, it's just a kite. I can just launch this thing." All of a sudden, I'm being dragged along the ground. right? Lucky it was soft, smooth, manicured grass at Parliament House. And I remember having these two guys who were out for a run, right? Probably military guys from the from the base. And these guys just jumped on top of me to stop me from being dragged into these trees or concrete, whatever was in front of me at that time. And I remember sort of packing it up a bit in shock and walking back into Adrenajen Sports covered in grass stains down my front with this messed up kite in a big pile. And my staff at the time just went, "Oh my God, what the hell happened to you?" And that was my first experience flying a kite. And I realized then that I had to go and find someone who could teach me to fly this thing safely. It was so powerful.
I like that. That's the event that got you into it. You're like, you know what? That was great. I want to do more of that.
Yeah, I think most people would have said, "Nah, I'm done. I'm good." But that's all. I mean, I think it kind of speaks to your character a little bit.
That's a big window into who you are as a person.
Yeah, I do love a challenge. I was only talking about this today with some people that, when you're scared, you can either see it as a threat and fight, flight comes into play and you run or you never want to do it again, or you see something as a challenge. And when you see something as a challenge like I do, you've got the opportunity to actually achieve something. If you overcome that challenge, it feels like you're winning. And that's the feeling that I'm addicted to, is that kite beat me that day, but it set a challenge that I wasn't going to give up on just yet. And that story goes on and on and on of how I ended up getting to become a professional kite surfer many years later.
That's awesome. That's a good outlook. I like that.
What year did that happen?
That was 99. And if you Google kiteboarding back in 99, everybody had the same experience as me. We were all being dragged along the ground. Some people actually lost their lives because the product itself had no safety systems. We were just hooking into this kite and there was no way to depower it. It's called allowing the wind to spill. So once you grabbed the bar, the power was on and there was no way of turning that power off. And it wasn't until 2006, right, that they actually came up with some really good safety systems and leashes. And all of a sudden it became a lot safer and more people started getting into the sport at that point.
I think the first time I was introduced to it or saw it was, I want to say there was a hurricane down here. This is back when I think I was still up in Vermont. Maybe I was in the Army at the time, but there was a video of this guy kite surfing during a storm, and he got picked up out of the ocean and like thrown over the beach into a building. And he just went for it. And I don't know if he made it through there, but that was like the first time I saw it. I was like, that does not look like fun.
Yeah, I've seen that footage, and I always advise my students not to look at that footage. It's not a good vision to have in your head when you're learning a new sport. But
and probably not the best time to do it.
No, you can see quite a few red flags there in terms of wind speed and safety of gear, and a lot of people were learning without much instruction. There's not that many coaches came into play and until the sort of 2008, 2010.
Yeah, I think the first time I saw it was maybe like 12 or 13. I remember we were military helicopter crews, and we would fly down the beach at 100 feet down the beach. And I remember just coming down. And I see that I thought it was a kite, like a person on the beach flying. People just fly kites, and then I watched this guy like launch like the same level as the helicopter, and I was like, wait, is that there's a dude strapped to a kite and he's coming right at us. And one of the crew chiefs were like, yeah, that's a kite surfing. And it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I've seen them now where they actually they're in the ocean doing it, and then they'll actually catch a wave and surf the wave and then come off of the wave and do it. It's really cool. Did it originally start with surfing and then move to skiing, or did it start in skiing and move to surfing?
Well, it actually started being called kiteboarding. And when people get into the sport, it's kiteboarding. They use something that looks very much like a wakeboard. It's a twin tip. It's got some, places for your feet on it with some straps over the top, and you can go both directions. So when you're learning, it's called kite boarding. Then once you
Okay.
get to a certain standard, and if you love catching waves like I do, you get a surfboard, and then you use the kite to tow you out over the whitewater. And because you're standing on the board, unlike a surfer who's paddling and their head is down low, we can actually see the sets coming. And then you can pick the set wave, the one that you want to ride. You can turn your kite, get onto that wave using the kite. It's like tow-in surfing. You get towed into that wave. And as soon as you feel that wave power pick up and you start to drop in, using that wave power to gain speed, you can actually turn the kite power off by depowering it. And then you can use the wave power to carve your bottom turn and top turn. And essentially, you are surfing the wave. Now, as soon as the wave's about to crash or break behind you, you pull back in on the bar, turning that wind power, kite power back on, and all of a sudden crashes down behind you. It's an incredible feeling. And that's actually one of my specialties is I'm a kite surfer, and I've competed around the world in kite surfing events, which are judged the same as a surf event for style and power and speed and critical turns in the pocket.
How long can you do that until you're completely exhausted? That sounds like a pretty intense workout.
It depends how fit you are. But when you're learning, you tend to have a little bit more fear. Your heart's beating, you're hanging on too tight, and your muscles get pretty sore pretty quick. But the more you can go out there and actually be relaxed and hang off the harness, there's not a lot of power in your arms. And, my husband and I can go out and catch 100 waves and be out there for 3 hours without stopping, sometimes 4. So you can have a long session.
That's awesome.
That's impressive. When I grew up surfing, and I was telling my wife we used to paddle across this inlet to this island that was connected to the island that we lived on. And it's probably a half mile wide, and I would paddle across. Me and my friends would paddle across after school, surf till it got nighttime, and then paddle across with no light. It was a shipping, like ships were going out and boats, and we were just like teenagers paddling back to go home. And now I'm in my late 40s, and I paddle out here, and I have a 10-foot longboard. I mean, a massive, just huge, massive rails, 2 feet wide. And I'm smoked after like 30 minutes. I'm done. And I work out regularly, and I think it's one of those things where the older you get, if you stop or slow down is when it really starts to catch up with you. But you had a couple of scares. Look at what we talked before. What was you had a spinal surgery and then a brain thing too? How?
Yeah, let me tell you about my spinal surgery, because that relates to the kite surfing. I was getting into my kite surfing. I was starting to compete. I was starting to do well in some sort of local events. And I had this dream of becoming a champion kite surfer. But in my early 40s, I started getting back pain like a lot of people. I'm sure there's people listening that can relate. Your back starts getting sore, and all of a sudden it stops you doing things. And, I'm fit, I'm healthy. I stretch, I do yoga. And no matter what I tried, no amount of massage or stretching could fix my back issue. And it wasn't until I went back home to Australia to visit and did some diagnostic testing that they realized that actually my L5S1 vertebrae was slipping, and that it was putting a lot of pressure on that disc, and I was getting sciatic pain down my leg, and there was absolutely no way that I could fix it on my own. So my husband had spinal surgery. My mum had multiple spinal surgeries. So I decided I was going to have spinal surgery too, to try and fix the problem. And that I did. I had a spinal fusion. They put in an artificial disc. They screwed it all into place like on a snowboard binding, had little inserts. And I entered into a 12-month period of recovery and not being able to do my sport. And any athlete that's been through an injury, which is nearly all of us, knows how hard it is both physically and mentally to have to start again. I could hardly walk for a while. I was really missing my sport, and I still had that dream of being a champion kite surfer. Now I'm at 45 years old now and unable to do my sport, and I didn't know if it was possible. But I remember sitting in my doctor's office one day looking around, and I said to him, I want to be your poster girl. I want to have a picture of me kite surfing on your wall to prove that we can get through these surgery and we can get back to the things that we love to do. And that was the motivation I needed, just that vision of seeing a picture of me on the wall kite surfing. And so after my 12 months, I was very motivated to get fit, to do all my physio. And slowly but surely, I started getting stronger. And I remember going kite surfing for the first time, being very tentative. And about, maybe 2 years later, I was able to go and compete at a local kite surfing event. And I did really well. I was fit. I'd been eating well. And boy, my mindset was on it as well. I really believe in mental endurance as well as physical endurance. And so after I did that local event, all of a sudden I saw an ad pop up in my kiteboarding groups. It said the Australian kite surfing championships were going to be held at Torquay. Now, Torquay is a famous place for surfing in Australia. That's like where they went at Point Break, where it's like, that's death on a stick, mate, right? And so this is a famous place. I'd never been there before. And I was like, right, Jen, this is your chance. This is your sign. And I jumped in my van with all my kites and my gear and drove down to Torquay to compete in the Australian Championships. Now, there were some really good girls that I was competing against. And to be honest, I was over double their age. They were all in their 20s. And here I was at 48 years old thinking, okay, this is my chance. And I had this ageless attitude. And I went into that event and I did really well. I actually won the event and became the Australian Women's Kite Surfing Champion. And that was in 2018, right, in December. And that was absolutely incredible. I couldn't believe it that I had my dream come true. And it even got better than that, though. That's not the end of the story, because the top 4 women got wild card entries into the World GKA kite surfing event, which was 2 weeks later, also in Torquay. So I got to compete against the best in the world at that event. Now, I was out of my element, as I was the oldest person competing. I was older than all the men. I was older than all the women. And, I was a little bit of a nerd, right? I like to use straps on my surfboard just like a snowboard. And I got to compete. And you compete against, I think I competed against the world's number 4. And I won my first heat. And I got to go into the judges' station there and speak to them. And I said, hey, I'm new at this kite surfing event. What did I do to win that? And they said, well, Jen, your style stands out. You look different to everybody else. You look like you're snowboarding on the wave rather than surfing. And they said, Jen, your speed is incredible, because skiers and snowboarders, we go fast, right? There's very little friction on snow. And I was also very aggressive carving my turns, because, again, on snow, we've got metal edges. And so we tend to carve a lot more aggressively than most normal surfers. So all of a sudden, I realized that the combination of my winter sport of skiing and snowboarding came into play. And I ended up coming 4th in the world in that event. And they actually gave me the Rookie Award. which I'm so proud of. Being the oldest person in the event and to win the rookie award was just a dream come true, right? The icing on the cake.
That's a
Please tell
wild.
me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No,
You
no,
send
go.
it. Oh,
No.
me first? Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah.
No, I was saying that's an awesome story. I just can't the zero quit through all of it. And then obviously your attitude and the way you tell the story, you're telling it like you're there right now winning. It's just, I don't know. It's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that.
Did you go back to the doctors and put your picture on the wall?
Yeah.
Please say yes.
I sent him a picture. I don't know whether he printed it. The last
It's 100% on that wall.
It needs to be on that
place
wall.
I wanted to go was back to that doctor's office, but I did send it to him and thanked him very much. And Tyler, when I was telling that story, I've got goosebumps. I mean,
Yeah, I
that was
bet.
such a special moment in my life, and I'm glad that came across as I was telling it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's a lot of people who would have given up 17. I would have given up the time I was dragged across the grass. I'd be like, all right, cool. There's got to be another sport out there for me. And hence why I'm not a world champion of anything.
Well, so that kind of is a good point, because it's one thing to try it in your 20s or 30s. It's another thing when you're in your 40s, and I feel like I'm qualified to say this because I'm in my 40s, is things get hard when you get older. Everything hurts more, and you I think the tendency, most people kind of just want to chill out and do the minimum, and I bet there's probably something to see that's why you see such a rapid rise in obesity rates and health things, because people, in your late 40s, early 50s, typically you've gotten to a place where you're somewhat financially stable. You can afford to kind of slack off a little bit. And I wonder, but for you, it didn't really. It's probably served you well, the mindset of trying to still go for it. You've got nothing left to prove, but you're still doing that. When you had the surgery, when you had the back surgery, how did that affect your mental state? Were you kind of, was it a period you were down and then you kind of picked yourself up, or did you have a positive attitude the whole time?
To be totally honest with you guys, I had already suffered from depression from many, many years before that. That started in my teens, having eating disorders. I suffered from depression. And so I started my mental fitness journey at quite a young age. And so learning to turn negatives into positives was one of the first things that we have to learn to do in order to overcome depression. And the doctor said I had clinical depression. They said I would be on antidepressants for the rest of my life. And again, that was a challenge that there was no way I was going to do that. So I did whatever it took to overcome that depression. And there was some really hard times. Some times I'm not proud of, some very messy times. And I think that learning to overcome the depression has helped me in every other challenge that I have come across in my life. I really believe in doing therapy and in learning some tools and techniques and mindsets to have when things go wrong. And after my spinal surgery, that was not my time to give up. That was my time to see it as a challenge. My husband is super athlete. He's 60 and he's still one of the best big mountain skiers up in Alaska. He's a heli ski guide. And there was no way I wanted to sit at home and be one of those wives who didn't go out with her husband kite surfing in the waves and skiing big mountains. So I was able to have the right mindset. As I mentioned before, I wanted to have an ageless attitude, that I didn't see my age as something that was going to hold me back or that was the end of my career. And now I've had spinal surgery. Yeah, a lot of people might have seen that as too many red flags and sort of said, okay, my time is over. But I'm now in my 50s and my time is still not over. Even with some of the new challenges that I have got, I've still set myself some incredible goals that a lot of people my age definitely don't do.
Do you think had you have not had to overcome those obstacles at a younger age, you'd be where you're at now? Or do you attribute some of your success to having to learn how to deal with that at a young age?
Yeah, at the time, I thought it was the worst thing that could ever happen to me, suffering from depression. But now that I look back, I'm actually grateful that I got to learn to have a positive mindset through those illnesses that I had when I'm young, because they've really set me up with a great attitude, a great mindset, and some really good tools that I'm using today that I teach other people. Because when I'm coaching and trying to teach somebody else to kite surf, man, they are overcome with fear. They have all of these beliefs that they're going to be pulled up into the air and slammed into a building like Tyler said he'd seen. They're scared of sharks. They're scared of waves. They're scared of avalanches. And so I'm able to also share those lessons with the people that I teach to help them overcome their fears as well, to see fears as a fun challenge to overcome rather than something that should hold you back or you should run away from.
Yeah. What's really interesting that you said with that too is it kind of goes to that mindset, because we talked in our, pre podcast, you told the story of how you came to Alaska. And I think that is a pretty not normal thing to do. How could you share with that? How do you mind sharing that story of how what led to leave Australia and go to Alaska?
Oh, I'm going to get goosebumps again. I love telling people about Alaska. I mean, it was seriously a dream come true. I was standing in Adrenajen Sports. I had all my male staff members next to me. We were taking a bit of a break and we were watching the latest snowboard movie on the big screen. And every year when these snowboard movies would come out, they always had a segment about Alaska. And you'd see them go up in helicopters, land at the top, and then ride these just beautiful pointy peaks. It'd be powder snow, they'd be getting face shots, and they'd just be leaving this gorgeous track down the mountain. And again, sometimes I just blurt things out, and I said, I'm going to do that one day. And these boys looked at me and said, yeah, right, Jen, sure. They couldn't visualize it, but I definitely could. And the following year, I had a trade show to go to. I got to go to Las Vegas in America to see all the latest sporting equipment. And there was a group of Aussie wholesalers, a couple of retailers, we were the ski industry crew, and they were going up to Alaska to go heli skiing. And I said to them, can I come? Can I come? I really want to do that. This was my opening. And they said to me, no, Jen, this is a boys only trip. There's no way you can go. And I'm like, are you serious? Come on, you guys. We all work together. But I'm always, one of the only girls hanging out with all the guys. And they said, no, you can't go. Our wives would kill us. There's no girls allowed. And about a week later, I got a phone call from those guys and they said, hey, somebody's dropped out. We've got a space to fill. We're going to have to pay for that spot unless somebody fills it. And I said, I am in. So after Vegas, we flew up to Anchorage. We jumped in a car. We drove down to Valdez. And the very next day, I am gearing up, ready to go in a helicopter for the first time, which is so exciting, as you guys know. I mean, the skiing is the bonus. Helicopter rides practically the best bit because you get to take off and you get to hover so closely to these incredible mountains. It felt like I was in that movie that I'd watched. Now, these guys that I went with, they were all skiers. So there were 10 Aussies, 9 men, and they were all skiers. And then there was me, and I was a snowboarder. So
oh, no.
I didn't. Oh, no, not a snowboarder. And so I didn't realize this, but they'd gone into the office when they arrived and we were all signing our waivers and said, hey, she's with us, but, we don't really want to ride with her. And so I ended up being put in a group with people that I'd never met before, which I didn't really care. And I was teamed up with this guy called Jerry, who was actually the lead guide. So we were the first group to get in the helicopter and go up and land on top of this peak. And I remember just being so excited. I got out the top of that mountain and just looking around, just absolutely, it didn't even feel real. I was like, I was suddenly in that movie. And then the helicopter took off, and I realized at that point that there was no backing out. And that's when the fear set in. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, shit. Sorry about the language. Be careful
it's
what you
perfectly
wish.
fine. Perfectly fine. It's actually encouraged.
I'm surprised we haven't dropped like 7 F-bombs by now.
And I thought to myself, be careful what you wish for, because it might just happen. And all of a sudden, I'm strapped into my snowboard. Jerry has said, okay, I'm going to go down first. And he dropped over. I didn't see him again. All I heard was him on the radio going, okay, Jen, it's your turn next. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know how to do this. You know, I've skied in Australia. We don't have powder, and all of a sudden it's like waist deep powder. And I had this snowboard, which was definitely too short. You know, I didn't realize that you need a long board the deeper it gets.
Yep.
And I dropped in and I did my first couple of turns, and it took a lot of courage to drop in. But I think having a couple of guys behind me going, hurry up, Jen, we want to go next. I dropped in, and I remember doing 2 turns, and then all of a sudden I just went over the handlebars. My snowboard was too small, and I started tumbling, which was my worst nightmare. I had no clue what to do. But the next thing I know, I end up back on my snowboard. After that tumbling, I'd kept my balance, and I was back riding again. I had no idea how I did that. I managed to make it down to the guide, and he was just cheering because it actually looked quite spectacular, he said. And I just burst into tears. The emotion was just overwhelming, of excitement, of fear, of courage, of having a dream come true. It was seriously an amazing moment. Goosebumps again.
So another semi-kite incident halfway through.
Yeah. Yeah, another semi without the grass stains.
Yeah. Just some snow and rocks probably.
How tall was that peak, just out of curiosity, that you guys were skiing?
Up in Alaska, the peaks are normally about that, 4,000 to 5,000 feet runs, right? That we're able to do. Now, when you first go up there, this mountain seemed like the biggest mountain I'd ever seen. But normally they take you to a slightly smaller mountain for your first run, just to test you out, see what your skills are like before they put you in too much danger with cliffs and exposure. So, but to me, that was just the biggest mountain I'd ever seen.
Yeah, I'm from the East Coast of the United States, and that's a big mountain for us. We're what are we, like 3,500? Well,
it depends. I think Blood Mountain's up at 4 or 5.
I think Mount Mitchell in North Carolina is the biggest on the East Coast, right?
I have no idea. Science.
It's not like the West Coast.
The cool thing about Alaska is the mountains are huge, but Valdez is actually at sea level. So really at the top, at the summit, you might only be at that, 8,000 foot mark. So you don't feel the altitude that you do, say, here in Montana, where I'm skiing at 10, 11, 12,000 feet. And also being that close to the ocean, you're getting a maritime snowpack. And so the snow comes in a little wetter, and the mountains can be super steep, and the snow just sticks to it. So the avalanche danger tends to be less, and that's why Alaska's really got that reputation of being deep and steep, and that's why they film all those segments in the movies there. It's just epic.
Yeah, the avalanche thing seems. I actually saw a video of a guy had a GoPro on and was in an avalanche. That sounds like worst case scenario. Like That sounds
Nightmare
horrible.
fuel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Avalanches, it's a real thing. It's kind of like sharks when you're surfing. You know, there's dangers out there. The cool thing is the skills that these heli guides and the backcountry guides have up there. They do a lot of training. They're trained to do forecasting. I mean, they're not even going to take you up that mountain if the avalanche danger is high. So it's all about forecasting. It's all about making sure you've got the skills and the knowledge. And also, they're carrying a big backpack that is just full of gear, rescue gear, and everything they need if somebody does get hurt or caught in an avalanche. So it's actually amazing, you know, in a whole season, they're taking hundreds of people, they're doing hundreds of runs, and the amount of avalanches is really quite small.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, talking about sharks and avalanches, and we live, like I said, on the east coast of Florida, and we've actually fly over and see just past the breakers. How big was that shark we saw the other day? It was probably like what, 10 foot?
Yeah, I want to say I saw a 10-footer out there.
Yeah, it was big.
In between a couple of
Cool.
people.
Yeah, just I mean, you're in their house, but I think I feel like with an avalanche, there's just nothing, that amount of snow and force. There's nothing you can do. You're just along for the ride at that point.
And hopefully you come out close to the top.
Yeah, because people get. Have you seen that video of that guy snowboarding and he falls in where the tree is and he's stuck upside down?
Tree wells are a real thing.
Is that what they're called? Tree wells?
Yeah, people will die in those things. They'll get caught because nobody will see them forever, and they'll suffocate upside down in a tree well.
Oh man, yeah. Sonny Bono died in.
Well, I think he hit the tree.
He hit the tree.
He didn't like fall into a well.
Yeah.
He just hit the tree.
I never got off the bunny slope. I went once to the. What's the double black diamond is the hard one, right?
Yeah.
What's the like the one after the baby slope, like a blue circle or something?
In Australia, we have green runs, then blue runs, then black, then double black diamond, and then you've got Alaska.
Yeah, and then you got the backcountry.
Yeah, I did the green one and the blue one, and when I got to the blue one, I was like, I immediately regretted this, and because I felt like I was going 600 miles an hour down. And my wife, she's from New York. She's from New York, and she's a skier. She skied in high school on their ski team, and she's just out there like carving, and you know, her hair is all flowing in the snow, and you know, she's looking like a goddess, and I'm just, I can't turn, so I'm just going straight down, and it was horrible, but I actually really enjoyed it. So.
We were TDY in Utah, and we took Keith. He's from Florida too, and so he's never been snowboarding before. He's, you know, a water guy, Florida through and through, son. So we were in Utah, like, hey, let's go to Park City. We'll take you snowboarding. So me and my buddy Billy, who's also, you know, did a little bit of snowboarding in his life. I'm like, dude, it'll be great. We'll go do that, and then we'll get, you know, some beers or whatever afterwards. And so we take him out to the bunny slopes, and we're running him. We were probably on the bunny slope for like an hour or two, and he's just doing the same thing. He's going straight. I was like, man, you got to really kind of bleed off some of that speed because you're going to hurt yourself. And on his last run, Billy and I were at the bottom of the bunny slope waiting, and Keith's just straight lining it towards us, and catches a back edge probably about 15 to 20 feet in front of us and slams his head off the snow and like comes to a stop in between both Billy and I, like looking up at us. And he's like, I think I'm done. I'll see you guys later. And he knocked the Oakley symbols out of his sunglasses.
Yeah, that like first day of snowboarding, because I grew up surfing, and you know, with surfing, you kind of you steer with your front foot. You know, all your weight's on the back, and you steer with the front, and then snowboarding, you lean forward and you kind of steer with your back foot. It's counterintuitive to a surfer, and so
but not a world champion surfer.
Yeah, I'm not a world champion. I'm nothing. But so enough about me. Let's get back to Jen. So Jen, one of the things, so when did you decide that you live full-time in the United States now, right? Or do you go back to Australia, or are you full-time here?
Well, before the pandemic, I was actually doing 6 months in Australia, 6 months in the States, and going backwards and forwards. And I did that for about 18 years. And I was loving that lifestyle, very balanced between both hemispheres. I got to see my family and my friends down in Australia. And I got to ski a lot. I got 2 winters in my year. I got to kite surf in both places. But when the pandemic came and all of a sudden travel was put to a halt, it kind of put a bit of a stop on my lifestyle and my plan. So I was unable to travel for the first year, and then the second year, climate change has been a bit of an issue, and we didn't get a lot of snow in Australia. So my work down there sort of dried up, and things have changed. Life has changed for a lot of people since the pandemic, and for me, it changed as well. So I'm actually spending more time in the States. I haven't been home to Australia for, uh, 2 years now. So I'm actually planning to go home for Christmas. Spoke to my mum today.
Nice. It'll be hot there, I guess, right? Or summer.
Summer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So is that weird, Christmas being in the summer growing up and then coming here and having a winter Christmas? Is that strange?
It's actually super cool because Christmas at home is always a barbecue outside. It's always hot. It's sunny. You eat a lot of seafood. And
Yep.
then I remember as an Aussie having my first white Christmas, which
Yeah,
is what
right.
you see in a lot of the movies, right? A lot of the
Right, like
American movies.
that's the typical thing, right? You don't even begin to think about other places that it's summer.
Yeah, yeah. So Christmas still feels like a warm environment to me. That's what comes naturally. But
Right.
I'm like a little kid, even at my age. Every time I get to have a white Christmas, and to ski on Christmas Day is a real treat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I grew up in Vermont and we used to have white Christmases growing up, but now they just rain.
Yeah, I think I had one white Christmas. It was 89, and it snowed 3.5 feet deep in eastern North Carolina, which has never
Oh
happened
man. Yeah.
ever. And we
Wow.
weren't prepared for it, so Santa Claus couldn't
No way.
come. It was the worst Christmas ever.
You didn't
And I
have
remember,
four-wheel
Oh,
drive?
no, no, no. Like my mom had a Honda Civic. She had it was like a 1984 Honda Civic front wheel drive, and I remember I don't think we had power at the house because the power went out, and so we drove to my grandparents' house because my granddad had he had a wood stove, and old school, super prepared for everything. So we drove over there, and we had to walk into to his house, which was like a quarter mile. It wasn't far, but I just remember Santa Claus didn't come, and then uh, my mom's like, "Don't worry, Santa Claus came to your grandparents' house," and it was like 2 days after Christmas, and he had, she was like, "Oh,
You can only make one
he
stop.
could only go over here." So,
Yeah. So you stopped at the
but
grandparents'
yeah,
house.
that was the worst Christmas, that 3.5 feet deep of snow,
that's
but
that's a
it wore
sad
off really quick.
story. That's a
Yeah,
sad story.
it's for here in Florida. It usually at Christmas. I mean, I've gone to the beach on Christmas. It could be 85, or it could be. Last year it was cold. I think it was in the 40s. We're talking Fahrenheit. So I'm sure. Does that still mess you up going from Celsius to Fahrenheit?
No, I can do that, no problem. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, in
yeah.
the military, and aviation, we use Celsius, so we can go back and forth too. But usually I've got to think about it. I'm like, okay, carry the two, but
I don't even know what the equation is.
yeah,
I just nod my head.
yeah.
Yep.
I just
It,
approximate. It's close
yeah,
enough.
it's that temperature outside. Got
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's hot or cold.
Yeah, it's hot
So
or cold. Am I sweating or not?
doing all the you did the Red Bull Ragnarok, and I've been reading about this. It sounds insane, and I don't know why anybody would want to do it, but I think, Tyler, this is in your wheelhouse. It's an endurance snow kiting race, right? And you got to do 5 laps, and it's out in the middle. Is it Norway, or yeah, it's Norway.
Yep.
I don't know how to say that. Harden
The
Schmergesberger.
Haviana Plateau. Yep.
Yeah. It looks like worst case scenario, once again, like
Perfect.
just nothing, just like, how did you did that race, right?
Yeah, so I've talked about my kiteboarding and getting into kite surfing, but one of those special moments when I was up in Alaska was when I decided I was going to try and use my kite with my skis, or actually it was my snowboard at first, and then I switched to my skis, and it worked. Steve and I couldn't believe it. We were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We're able to be towed around on the flats, getting speed. Normally, you've got to get a helicopter or hike up a mountain to get a steep enough slope to get speed with gravity in order to carve a turn and get a face shot. And I still remember the first time we tried our snowboards with a kite, and it was amazing. And all of a sudden, our second or third time we tried it, we realized it could actually tow us up the mountains as well, which was like, wow, this is like having your own private ski lift in the backcountry. Because, of course, you can't afford to go heli skiing every day. I'd fallen in love with my heli ski guide, and I was now spending, a couple of months in Alaska. So I couldn't heli every day. Backcountry was becoming popular, which is where you put the skins on the bottoms of your skis, you do your avalanche courses, and you try to pick a safe route up the mountain. But to get up, say, 3,000 feet, that's going to take you 4 or 5 hours to hike up. So as soon as we figured out that the kites would tow us around, and especially on the down days when the helicopters couldn't fly, as soon as it was stormy and they lost visibility or the wind picked up and they couldn't fly, people were sitting around just drinking at the bar, not having any fun. They call it a down day. But as soon as they were the days that this, cute guy I was dating, he had the day off. He didn't have to guide in the helicopter that day. And so we started flying the kites around the flats, which was a safer place to be when it's stormy. You don't want to be up the mountain where it could avalanche. And we were having a blast. And all of a sudden, the owners of the heli ski operation were like, well, people are seeing you do that. Can you, take our clients? And we started teaching people to do it. And it became my thing. Steve would go to work and be heli skiing with his clients all day. And I was able to go out there by myself and play around in the flats and figure out the skills of kiteboarding with skis on and how to go up that mountain. And it really became something I got totally addicted to. It was way more fun than sweating your guts out hiking up a mountain. And I was able to get miles and miles and miles of skiing and snowboarding under my feet in just a couple of hours. And so I would go back to Australia in the wintertime, and Australia doesn't have those big pointy mountains, and the skiing, I still loved it. I mean, any day skiing is super fun, but we have all this rolling terrain in the backcountry, which is okay for cross-country skiing, but for alpine downhill skiers, it was a little boring. Throw a kite in the works and all of a sudden your adrenaline is pumping. You are going fast. You are covering a lot of ground very, very quickly. You can get yourself into a lot of trouble because you can go out so far, and if the wind dies, you better have your skins or your snowshoes in your backpack in order to walk home. So all of a sudden I realized I needed to really have advanced backcountry skills, evaluating cornices, because you're hanging out where it's windy. And where it's windy in the snow, you're going to get terrain traps, terrain features, cornices, wind-loaded slopes, which can avalanche. So I started doing all my training to become a backcountry guide. And I would just spend a lot of time out there snow kiting and teaching other people to do it too, so I didn't have to go on my own. And I found myself snow kiting in Australia. I'd come back here to Montana, and there's some good places to do it here. And of course, I would go up to Alaska, which ended up just being one of the most ultimate locations for snow kiting. So as soon as I saw that there was this race called the Red Bull Ragnarok in Norway, I had to do it. I had to go and give it a go. But this was something that was super endurance. As you mentioned, that it's like 5 laps and you've got 5 hours to try and, go as far as you can. Now, most people in that 5 hours, they're lucky if they complete one lap. There's a few guys who had some epic skills who've done it year after year that completed those 5 laps. But in 2019, when I did it, no woman had ever completed the five laps. And I'd spoken to quite a few people who had done it before me, and they said mentally it is so tough. You're so tired. You have no idea where you're going. It can be a complete whiteout, and your legs are just going to burn. And
what's the course like?
The course was very much like sailing. Anyone who knows anything about a sailing race knows that you're going to have markers that are out there. But because it's not flat, you can't see the markers. The marker might be over, 2 rolling mountains that way. And in the morning, you get up at 6 a.m., you go to your briefing, they show you a map where the marks are, and you've got to memorize where they are or put them into your GPS. I'm more of a memory girl. And your first lap is spent trying to figure out where these marks are. So I knew that lap number 1 was going to be all about figuring out the navigation. And I'm so lucky that I had this incredible coach that gave me a mental strategy, which was just brilliant. He said, Jen, okay, you got 5 laps. You need to choose 5 people. I want one of those people to be you, and I want one of them to be your brother, because my brother's he's an Olympic athlete. He holds the world speed skiing record, and he's a huge inspiration to me. So, and then I had to choose the other 3 people and decide what order to do them in. So lap number 1, I had the names written on my arm. Lap number 1 was for my dad, because he taught me to sail out at sea, off Sydney Harbour. He'd take me out to sea, and we didn't see land for days at a time. And so he taught me to navigate using stars, using a compass. And my dad had passed away a couple of years earlier. So I did that lap thinking of him. Lap number 2, I knew that I needed to improve on my navigation, because you made mistakes trying to figure out where they were. So lap number 2 was difficult, and the wind died. I ended up in this valley. There was no wind. And in that case scenario, you have to take your skis off, put them on your shoulder. You have to either wrap your kite up or drag it behind you, and you just need to start hiking. And I had to hike up a mountain like that, dragging my kite to get up to where the wind was. And lap number 2, I did for my friend Laura. She had taught me how to forecast the wind. She was actually, there's an app in America called iKitesurf, and she was the secret forecaster. She was so good at wind forecasting. And I remember looking at her name and then looking up at the sky and saying, Laura, please help me. Can you bring the wind back? Where's my wind? And sure enough, the wind came back, and I was able to improve my navigation on that second lap. Now, there were 400 people racing, and you have no idea if they're on lap number 1, lap number 3, lap number 5. There's just people everywhere, and you can't just follow somebody, because you don't know if they actually know the way to go. You've just got to figure it out. But lap number 3, I did for my brother. As I'd mentioned, he holds many world records, including the Australian speed skiing record. And I thought to myself, boy, I hope those speed genes run in my side of the family too. And lap number 3 ended up being my fastest lap. I still had energy. I knew my navigation. I was thinking about my brother, and that was the fastest female lap of the whole race. Lap number 4, I knew was going to be difficult, because now I was getting really tired. I had had a camelback, and I'd bitten the valve off it. I think I was biting too hard, and it fell out. And all of a sudden, that water is now coming out of the camelback. It's dripping down inside my ski gear. I can feel it dripping down the inside of my leg, and now it's in my ski boot. And so every sort of time I put weight on that foot, I'd squelch. And then I'd be, oh, shit, I'm so thirsty. And I knew that water was all in my ski boot, which felt terrible. Things were getting hard. My legs were just burning so hard. I couldn't eat anything. I had all this peanut butter in my pocket ready to get energy. But because I was so dehydrated from lack of water, I was just getting pasty mouth. There was no way I could actually get any energy from the food. But lap number 4, which was written on my arm, I was actually doing for people with depression. As I'd mentioned, I have a history of depression. I have a lot of friends, and I'd actually met a mother before I flew to Norway, and we were having a beer at the bar, and she told me her son had just passed away to suicide. And so her story and seeing the pain in her eyes was very real to me. And I realized that the pain that I was going through my leg was nothing, the pain that a mother goes through when she loses her son, right? And no matter how hard I was doing it, there were people who suffer from depression who are just doing it so hard in life. It really brought what I was doing back into reality rather than me focusing on all my problems. I started looking at other people's problems that were just so much bigger than mine. And that got me through lap number 4. Now, lap number 5, I was the last person on the list, and I did lap number 5 for myself, and I knew no woman had ever completed lap number 5. I had, a clock here on my chest, and I was like, I think I've got enough time to complete that 5th lap. But it was getting late in the day, and the sun had come out, and all of a sudden the snow started getting super sticky. You can't stop and re-wax your skis. And so I was going slower, which was putting more pressure on my legs. I was super dehydrated, and someone had passed me a drink, kind of like at a triathlon. Someone passes you a drink, and it was Red Bull, which I kind of wanted water, but I had a few sips of that that Red Bull, which probably just gave me those wings to keep
wings.
going. Yeah, but and I remember seeing the finish line, and now the wind had died, and I've got my skis back on my shoulder, and I'm dragging my kite, and I must have been about 5 to 10 minutes away from that finish line when the alarm went off. And so it was bittersweet. It was bittersweet. I knew that I'd done everything that I could. I was super proud of myself. I knew that I had possibly gone further than any woman had ever gone in the world. And until I found out that I actually came in second place, and another woman had beat me, and she had competed in this race before, and she deserved to win because she made a really smart navigational move on that last lap. When the wind started to die, she actually doubled back and stayed up on top of the ridge where there's higher wind, whereas I'd stuck to my same navigation that I had done the laps before. So yeah, it was bittersweet, but still, I'm so proud of my achievements and to come second in that race. And boy, did I want to go back to the Red Bull Ragnarok and do it again. But unfortunately, in 2020, on my way there, the pandemic broke out, and they've never had that race ever again so far. So
It's got to come back at some point, right?
All my fingers and toes are crossed. And I don't care how old I am. I'm going back to have another go for sure.
There's something special about being in that hole, like when you're out there on something long like that, and you're out of water, and your shoes are filled, you don't have any wind. You know what I mean? Like any one of those scenarios is enough to stop most people in their tracks. And then you just put it all on there, and then you're tired. You know what I mean? And then it's like, all right, this is kind of fun.
It was a challenge.
Yeah.
And I love a challenge.
Apparently. You seem to find them everywhere you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever heard of Rip It? The energy drink Rip It? Have you ever heard of those?
No.
Nobody has, except for the US military. But
so what they did is this company, and I don't know, we're trying to remember who they're owned by.
It's Fago owns them. I looked it up.
Oh, that's
today.
right. That's right.
It is like LaCroix and Fago and all those people. Shasta.
They sent pallets of these energy drinks in like little 8-ounce cans. And the joke with them things is so it's like a Red Bull. It's like a little Red Bull, but it's in like a squat little can. And they're always sitting on the dash of some vehicle under a seat on a pallet out in the sun. So they're always boiling hot when you're drinking them. And so there's like a mystique to a hot Rip It. Sorry, I didn't mean to take that over. I just got
Yeah.
excited. Every time I hear
No,
about
we were
Rip It, I
just
get
talking about
excited.
Rip It, that we miss the little Rippets that are. I need, if I had a hot Citrus X right now, the
Oh, that's the
sugar-free
best
Citrus
one.
X,
Yeah.
I would perk right up. But
that had been sitting in the sun for 2 months
that like you were talking about today, that the aluminum had worn down, all the writing was
because it's just rattling around in the back of a vehicle. You're like, oh, I got one.
Yeah. So talk to us about you. Two things I want to know about. One, polar bears. Super interested in the polar bear thing.
Yeah, there's one behind you. Watch out.
Yeah. Well, I watched this show called The Terror, and there's a killer polar bear in there. And apparently, polar bears are pretty gnarly. Like they will kill you. And have you came across the polar bear, or what's the story with the polar bear?
Well, polar bears was on my list of things that I wanted to do when I first went up to Alaska. I had my bucket list.
I want to see a killer animal.
I want to ride a polar bear.
Yeah, I want to see polar bears in the wild. And, I just thought it would be like being on a National Geographic show. And so the first time I saw polar bears, I'd actually flown to Fairbanks. I'm like, well, I'll fly as far north as I can go. And you go to Fairbanks and then you get in another small plane. And I went up to a native village called Barrow. And that's the most northern town in the United States. I'm like, well, there must be polar bears up there. I was actually very ignorant. And I arrived there. I didn't book a tour. I had no idea. I was just like, well, I got to find a polar bear. And I walked into the hotel. There was only one hotel in town. And I walked in and I said, hey, have you got a room for a couple of nights? And they're like, yeah, we've been expecting you. And I said, no, you haven't. I don't have a booking. And the lady freaked out. She was like, honey, I've got a walk-in. They'd never had anybody walk in without a booking before, but that's just what Aussies do. We travel, we find places to stay. And they went, well, what are you doing here? I said, well, I want to see a polar bear. And they're like, what? And they said, well, you need to meet our friend John. And John was the only person who had a permit to drive a vehicle out to Point Barrow to where they leave the whale carcasses. And that's where you're definitely going to find a polar bear, is hanging around those whale carcasses. And he was a photographer. So I organized to go out the next day. They have those vehicles with, instead of having tires, they have these tracks on them. Yeah. And I went out with him the next day, and my dream came true. I was in the National Geographic vehicle taking pictures of polar bears. We saw 70 polar bears in 2 days. I had to go out again the next day, of course. It was like so awesome.
7-0?
7-0, yes. Mothers with twin cubs, and he took some incredible photos with his big long lens and gave me copies of them. And it was just one of the most incredible experiences, seeing a wild animal, and something as an Australian, polar bears was just incredible to be able to see in real life. And I remember, there was one polar bear that came towards the vehicle and he turned it sideways so that he looked bigger. And then the bear's like, oh, and he turned around and walked off. And then he didn't let me out of the vehicle except this one time. And I was able to walk up and have a look at this print on the ground from a polar bear, and it was huge. So all of a sudden, I became obsessed with polar bears. I started drawing artwork of polar bears, writing poems about polar bears. They became my spirit animal. And so probably, about 15 years later, I had the chance to go up to Kaktovik, which is on the other side north in Alaska. It's near the border of Canada, and it's actually on a little island that's off the coast, and it's famous for polar bear viewing. That's where all the photographers go in your summertime up there, and the polar bears are on the land, and most of them are just sleeping, and the photographers are taking pictures. And you can't actually go to Kaktovik in August they are booked out for multiple years in advance because of the polar bear viewing. But I'd been invited to go up there in at the end of April, beginning of May, to actually go and teach at the school. Right, I told you I was right into kites, and I was a certified kite instructor, and I'd been invited to go and teach these kids how to fly kites. And when I got there, all I wanted to hear about was, hey, where are the polar bears? Can I see a polar bear in the wild again? And they told me, no, we haven't seen a polar bear in a couple of months. This time of year, they're out on the ice. You're not going to see a polar bear, Jen. You're going to have to come back in July or August to see them. And I was a bit disappointed, to be honest. But I got to go into some local residences, and I saw, polar bear claws, and I saw some pelts on the walls of some polar bears that unfortunately they'd had to shoot because they were a problem in the village. Every place that I went into had posters and photographs on the walls of polar bears. I was just in polar bear heaven. I had a cap on my head with a polar bear on it. And boy, I wanted to see one so bad, but I just came to the conclusion that I wasn't going to on this trip until about halfway through the trip. It had been stormy, it had been super windy, and we'd hardly been outside at all. But all of a sudden, the clouds started to part, and somebody said, hey, let's all go out and watch the sunset at midnight. And I thought, wow, that's a cool experience. Let's do that. And I was already out the door, and somebody said, hey, Jen, grab your kite. I want to see you fly that thing. Let's fly a kite. We had a couple of dogs with us, and so we went out to find a spot to fly the kite. And so I put up this kite, and it wasn't a great location. The wind was terrible. There were buildings that were upwind of us that the wind was sort of funneling around. There was a snow fence downwind of us as well that sort of had a big snow bank. The fence was there to stop all the snow coming into the village. And so I'm flying this kite, and it's going up and down and all around, I'm controlling it the best that I could. And the next thing I know, I hear one of the girls yell behind me, bear, bear. And I look over, and all of a sudden I'm looking in the eyes of a polar bear, and it is charging directly at me.
Well, that's not good.
Now, this was like an out-of-body experience, because at that point, my primal fear response kicked in, and I instantly turned and started running, which is exactly what you're not supposed to do. All the posters say, hold your ground, stand there, wave your arms. And I turned around and I started running. And I saw the other people that I was with, I saw the backs of them, and they were all running too. We all had exactly that same primal response. And the next thing I know, I fall flat on my face out of nowhere. And that's very unlike me. I've got extremely good balance. I don't crash. I have a no crash policy, right? And all of a sudden I am on the ground. And the next thing I know, I'm getting up, trying to figure out why had I fallen over. And as I got up, I turned around and I looked back at the bear. Now, the bear is way too close. I'm going to tell you it's probably about 100 feet away.
Yeah, it's too close.
And I was able to look it in the eyes. I was able to nearly see its breath. If you've ever seen them run on the National Geographic channel, they've got these big floppy feet, and everything seemed like it was happening in slow motion. And as I'm looking at this bear, I've got this thought in my head, oh my God, this could be it, Jen. It's way too close. And then at the same time, I realized that I'd fallen over because I was still attached to my kite. Remember how I told you about those safety systems? Well, one of the safety systems is you wear a leash. And so you're attached to the kite for your own safety. But all of a sudden, I realized that I'd been running, and my kite would be pulling me one way, and I was running the opposite way. And eventually
going nowhere.
It was like an anchor to me. And so now I'm just trying to get this Velcro leash off my wrist. I'm looking at the bear. I'm trying to get the Velcro off, and it wasn't coming off very easily. I had gloves on, and the guy behind me I didn't actually look back at him, but he had turned and looked over his shoulders, seen me fall over, and he'd realized that I was in trouble, and he'd stopped and he started yelling. He started waving his arms just like in the poster. And the next thing I know, I got that leash off, and it was still super windy, and my kite started blowing away from me, which is what the leash is for. It's so that you don't lose your kite. And the next thing I know, I watched this bear chuck a yui, which is what we say when somebody turns quickly, and he started chasing my kite, which was going the opposite way. So so that day, my kite saved my life, and I got an incredible experience of seeing this polar bear. I think I manifested it. I'm so grateful that nobody got hurt, including the bear, because probably about 5 to 10 minutes later, the Polar Bear Patrol, who had gone to bed, that's a couple of guys on snow machines, like a snowmobile, but they call them snow machines up in Alaska. They had some guns with them. And because the bear was not threatening my life, they shot fireworks at the bear and chased it out of the village. So the bear was not hurt. If they'd seen it charging at me, they would have used the gun with bullets, and I would have been devastated that one of my favorite animals had gotten hurt. Was that bear trying to eat me? I don't think so, to be honest with you. If I had to give you my honest opinion, I think that bear was curious. It's seen the kite, because a kite's up in the sky so they can see it from a distance. It had been curious, and it had just wanted to see what that was. And so when it saw the kite move, it turned around and chased the kite, which is what it was more interested in than me.
Did you get your kite back?
I did. And it's funny how everybody asked that. And to be honest with you, I was hoping it had like claw marks in it so I could put it on the wall, frame it with these polar bear claw marks.
It'd be a lot cooler if it did.
It would. The bear got to my kite. He sniffed it. He realized it wasn't food. And then he actually started walking back towards me and the village. And of course, I had time to run away and get to safety by that point. But later on, the Polar Bear Patrol guys went and got it on the snow machine, and I still have that kite to this day. It's pretty special to me.
Yet again, another story that would have turned somebody into a recluse after one of those events.
Yeah, I guess it's all where you grow up to. Like we here in Florida, there's big gators, alligators, and massive snakes, and people that live here, it doesn't even fade. Like there's one in my pond right now next to my house, and there's one behind people are like, yeah, it's just the alligator. So,
which is nothing to an Australian either, I'm sure, because your crocodiles are monstrous.
Yeah, this crocs.
And angry.
Yeah, I don't live up near the crocodiles. I'd probably be
that's like Queensland, right? And
up in Queensland, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they would. I'm all good with spiders and snakes. I've had a lot of experience with those, and they don't tend to scare me at all. Tends to be something I can freak Americans out talking about spiders and snakes. But
yeah, I'm not a fan.
It's all what we're used to. It's what we're experienced with, and people always, saying to me, "Oh, you guys have spiders and snakes," and I'm like, "You guys have got bears and mountain lions and crocodiles." Everybody's got something scary out there, but those animals are just as scared of us as we are, and they also have the fight, flight, freeze response as well. They use it for their own survival against other animals. So we're all, in the same boat, really.
We had a bear come into our house when we were in Vermont. At least I think it was a bear. I had woke up because I had 2 dogs at the time. And we lived up in the woods, in the middle of nowhere. And it was like 2:00 in the morning, and we'd have bears. There's bears on the property. They would come, at any given night and, find a trash bag somewhere and then make your yard a mess. But my dog was barking. And so I hop out of bed and I go towards, where the noise is. And our front door is open. And I see like another ass of an animal exiting the door. I thought it was my other dog. And I was like, oh, okay. Cool. Odin's standing there in the doorway. And I look and I see Zumi asleep on the couch. And then I think about the height, and the height was a little bit bigger than my dog was a German Shepherd. And I think it was a bear's ass. It opened the door because we had one of those like little push down flap things, which thinking
Like a
about it now is,
latch.
yeah, like a latch, which is stupid, obviously, because if a bear stands up and goes like this, doors open. We didn't really ever lock our doors in Vermont, but yeah, no, we saw that bear the next day. But yeah, it was just in our house in the middle of the night.
Cool.
Yeah, exciting.
Scary. Yeah.
Yeah. So so with the kite surfing and the snow kiting and the doing all this stuff, it do you how do you manage having it sounds like your hobby is the way you earn your income. And do you have a side job, or is this how you make your money is living this kind of like adrenaline filled, kite surfing and snow kiting? Is that how you sustain yourself?
Yeah, I'm very grateful that I have gotten to follow my passion, and my passion has also turned into my career. My first job was a ski instructor, and skiing, and that allowed me to travel and teach. And then I became a kite instructor, and in the summer I teach kite surfing. In the winter, I've become a sought out after snow kite instructor. There's very few snow kite coaches and instructors in the world, and people will travel up to Alaska, especially to go with me. I also have an online kite store, so I get to sell people kites as well. Once they have a lesson and they love it, they can buy a kite from me. I also have been getting into speaking lately, doing some keynote speeches, telling my stories like I am with you guys, and trying to share my knowledge, my stories, and these lessons with others. And to be honest with you, I just uploaded my first book onto Amazon today. I'll have the proof next week. So I'm going to be a published author as well this month. So I've got a lot of exciting things happening, and it's all based around my sports, my stories, and the lessons that I love to share with others.
What's the title of your book?
It's called Gale and the Red Kite of Courage. It's
Yes.
a children's book for kids aged about 6 to 12, and it's all about Gale being depressed when her brother got cancer, and she became very withdrawn. And all of a sudden, her brother gets home after having his cancer treatment and gives Gale a kite for her birthday. And she's a bit scared of flying this kite. She'd never flown it before. And her dad takes her out and she flies this kite. And all of a sudden, it lifts her spirits and she feels joy and she feels a connection with the wind. And then her grandma takes her to a kite festival on the weekend, and she meets all these other kids that love flying kites as well. And there's a beautiful illustration of Gale flying a kite with her brother. And you can see in that illustration that her brother only has one leg. He lost his leg to cancer and became an amputee. And all of a sudden, they realized that they were, had found the courage to overcome the challenges that they both had in life, and they found joy together. So I think you can realize by now it's actually a true story of my brother and I, and how I became best friends with the wind and managed to find so much joy out of flying a kite.
Did when you say with about you and your brother, and I actually you can go to galeandtheredkite.com, and it's pretty cool. You can go on there and it tells you how to make a kite. And I didn't even know that you had this, so that's awesome. It's so you said the book was based on your experiences. Did your brother lose his leg to cancer? Was that all true?
It is true. My brother was 9 years old when he was diagnosed with cancer, and he had bone cancer and osteogenic sarcoma. And we found out very quickly that the only way that he would survive, if he was to survive, was to amputate the leg and give him, strong chemotherapy. And this is back in the early 80s. and they really didn't have the, technology and the same drugs as they do now. So my brother lost his leg, and one of the first things that my dad did was find some disabled ski instructors, and my brother learnt to ski on one leg. And he actually is that brother that I was talking about. He holds the world speed skiing record for someone with a disability, and also he beat all of the two-legged Australians as well to hold the Australian speed skiing record. And he went. It was 268 kilometers an hour, and that's about 130 something miles an hour. I'm not quite as good
That's
at converting
disgusting.
miles, but yeah. So he holds a speed skiing record. He's got gold medals in the Paralympics. He's in the Australian Hall of Fame, a Toyota-sponsored athlete, and my brother has really shown me what overcoming challenges is about. And maybe that's why I am the way I am today, is because really, you can't really have an excuse when your brother's, lost a leg and is going out there and achieving such incredible things.
There's really nothing that's going to hold you guys back from anything, huh? That's awesome.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do you think that was always present in your family? Was it developed because of what happened to your brother, or was there something that your parents kind of instilled in you, or was there a catalyst there that made you guys have that mindset that stayed with you this long?
I think because they had the sports store and we were always getting introduced to new sports. And of course, it's only my brother and I, the two of us. And so whenever a new sport came in, it wasn't just about testing out the new equipment. It was, how can we figure out that my brother can do it too? So when rollerblades came out, him learning to rollerblade on one leg using his crutches to push, and then figuring out how to put the end of a hockey stick on his crutches so he could play rollerblade hockey, and figuring out if he wanted to windsurf, that he had to make a peg leg out of PVC pipe and a big sanding disc on the bottom in order for him to windsurf. So we really got that MacGyver mindset, I'm going to call it, of trying to figure out how we could adapt equipment so that my brother could do it too. And I think that's why we really have this mindset of overcoming challenges, adapting, figuring it out, and never giving up.
Yeah, I think that's super important, because I tell my kids, a lot of, I think I've always had this of never giving up or not quitting, and it just got reinforced in the organization that Tyler and I were part of in the Army. Is that the motto is Night Stalkers don't quit, and I think that kind of becomes like a mantra. At least, like, I won't quit anything. I'm either gonna die trying, or I'm gonna have somebody remove me or get. It's like a principle. I wouldn't do it. I mean, maybe I would if I'm older now, but I think that's important to have that kind of mindset. And would you say you have one other thing that we kind of haven't touched on here, is what's the deal with the brain surgery? Like, is that something you are okay with talking about, and how does the brain surgery fit in the timeline of Ragnarok and skiing, and like where does this fall into all this?
I'd love to share this story for you, because when I first got diagnosed with brain aneurysms, which was only in January this year. So this is my latest challenge, and this is my latest fear that I'm overcoming, and this is my why behind why I really want to share my stories with others. Was I'd been having headaches for about 5 months, and the doctors had told me, you've got meningitis, you've got migraines, here, take this medication, that medication. And my healthy lifestyle, I don't want to take any of that medication. So I know my body well, and something in my intuition told me, there's more to this. There's more to this. And my doctors had told me that they couldn't do any more diagnostics. And so I actually went to emergency one day, and said, hey, look, this is what's happening to me. Can you please do some diagnostics? And they did a CAT scan on the back of my head. And the doctor came back and said, I think we've found what's causing your headaches. It was a huge brain aneurysm. And I didn't even know what a brain aneurysm was. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's pretty much that the walls of the artery in your brain have weakened or gotten thin, and there's too much blood pressure in your head, and all of a sudden the walls of the artery start expanding like you've got a hose with too much water pressure in it. And I very quickly realized when I Googled and got some information that I was one of the lucky ones. We'd actually found these aneurysms before they ruptured. And the one in the back of my brain was 19 millimeters long. That's, 2 centimeters. You'll have to convert that into inches, but that's massive. In all of my Google research, I haven't found anybody with one that big. And so for that to rupture would have ended my life. I would have had an instant stroke, and that would have been it. And a couple of days later, I had to go to Billings in Montana. That's where there was a neurosurgeon. And I had an angiogram for the first time, which is where they put contrast in your brain. It's pretty much an x-ray of your brain. They ended up finding 3 aneurysms, not just one. And
how big did you say that one was? 19?
19
centimeters?
19
Centimeters?
19 millimeters.
Millimeters, okay.
Just under 2 centimeters.
Yeah.
And boy, that was just devastating news. All of a sudden I was grieving. I mean, I was alive, but I was grieving my life. I was grieving my sports. I was grieving my goals that I'd set. I was in a team of girls planning to cross Greenland next year, which would have been just an incredible achievement and story. So I was grieving my life. And I've already told you some scary stories, but I don't think I've ever been that scared in my whole life. The night before my first surgery, I didn't know whether I would survive. I was using all of those positive mindset tools that I'd learned. I was chanting to myself, I'd be brave, I'd be strong, I'd be loved, I'd be lucky, I'd be grateful, I am the storm. And I chanted that over and over and over hundreds of times. And there were just tears pouring out of me the morning that I had to go in for my surgery. And I was saved. I had an incredible doctor. I woke up in ICU, and I remember looking at the wall and seeing Jesus on the cross and feeling like I'd survived, that I had a calling. There was something more that I had to do in this world, and I had been saved. And I had a few things in my ICU room for when I woke up. I had a little polar bear, a stuffed animal polar bear that is I carry it with me everywhere. My spirit animal of the polar bear. I had some of my grandma's beads that she'd made me, and she turned 100 this year, so she's super inspiring to me. And I had a kite. I had the world's smallest kite that was made out of paper and bamboo kind of toothpicks. And I got that kite out and I waved it above my head, and this kite was flying around the room, and I had a smile and I had joy in my face. And I thought, okay, I've got this. I can still find joy in my life no matter what happens. If I can't kite surf again, if I can't snow kite again, if I can't stand on top of a big mountain again, that's okay. I will find joy. I just need to pivot my passions. And I remember listening to some Tony Robbins training. I find him super inspiring, super positive. And he asked us a question. He said, is there more knowledge left in a graveyard or a library? that hit me like a knife in the heart. And I realized that I'd been given a second chance, and I needed to make sure that my knowledge, that my stories were left in a library, and I didn't just take them to the graveyard. That my story of being chased by a polar bear, these stories that inspire others of my resilience and overcoming challenges, I wanted to share them with you. And that's why I'm on this podcast today, is just to share these stories with as many people as possible. And I can only hope that they give somebody out there some inspiration to overcome their life's challenges, and give them hope that they can survive. And hopefully they don't just get depressed because they can't do what they love, that they can find a positive, they can pivot their passion. And that is really my big why this year, and why I'm writing books, speaking on stages, and chatting with you guys today.
I like that sentiment of pivoting your passion, as far as, because I think that falls right in line with, we always hear people say, you're finding your purpose again when you get out of the military, or when you leave like the police force or whatever. You're always trying to find your purpose. But I like the pivoting your passion. I think that's a little bit better.
Yeah, we hear that theme a lot, and we've dealt with this in our own lives. And
today even.
Yeah. What were we talking about today?
Oh, just work.
That's not my passion.
No, that's what I'm saying.
You shut your mouth when you're talking to me about work. We have a day job, if everybody doesn't know.
Oh no.
But it just kidding, work is totally my passion. If you're listening, we like the paycheck. But it's interesting you say that, because we had a couple episodes back, Joey Johnson, his son, killed himself, and one of the clips in that episode was him basically saying he turned his tragedy into purpose. He just kind of channeled it, and he made his foundation that honors his son's memory, and that kind of helped him heal. I mean, obviously he's never going to be the same or whole again, but he found that putting that, channeling that tragedy into something useful and helping oddly enough, service to others, really helped him get over it. And I wondered if that's something similar with you, because we find that when we talk about vulnerable things on this podcast, it actually kind of helps us work through the issues we have, and it usually resonates with people, and then they end up kind of finding the courage to handle their stuff. And do you think that's something that you part of your process from having a background of depression and trying to get that? Because it all kind of briefs well when you see stuff, you got to get out there and grind and hustle and make it happen, but that's kind of surface based things, and there's something real down deep that when you try to help somebody, or you do it from a place that is a genuine concern, that it actually helps you in the process. Am I on the right track with your process, or is that similar? Or?
Yeah, you're definitely on the right track. Writing the book Gale and the Red Kite of Courage was really therapy for me to look back at where my depression started, being the sibling of and having a brother that had cancer. That book is also for others, but it was therapy for me. Sharing these stories is definitely therapy, and I have my kind of recovery plan, I like to call it, is that after a setback in life, I think it's really important to lay back, to spend time to rest, to recover, to look after yourself first. And then after that layback is the comeback, time to start recovering, start training your body again, making a comeback to what you're able to do. And then after the comeback is the most rewarding part, which is where I am right now, is the give back and giving back to communities. This year when I was up in Alaska, it was about a week after my second brain surgery. I flew up to Alaska. I didn't want to be away from my husband, and he was up there working. He said, "No woman left behind." And I went up there, and being in Alaska, not being able to ski, not being able to snow kite, again, could have put me in a place of sadness and depression. But I decided I needed to give back. And that's when I went to the school in Valdez, and I taught over 150 kids how to make kites out of colored paper and popsicle sticks and line, and those kites actually fly. So that's what you were saying, Thad. If you go to my website, I teach people how to make kites, and I taught the kids about wind, and I shared all of the benefits of kites to this world, including, helping create energy, being a scarecrow in a field, on ships to save fuel out at sea, not just kite surfing and things, but that kites really are having a big impact and such a great way to use the wind's energy. So I was sharing that with the kids. I was making kites with the kids. And I remember the moment that made me realize that I definitely was giving back. And that was after one day that I'd taught this class at school. I went to the supermarket and I had my favorite hoodie on. It says, "I love kites" on the front. And this lady walks up to me and she says, "You must be the kite lady. Were you at the school teaching the kids how to make kites today?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "I have to tell you a story. My daughter has been super depressed. I won't go into all the details," she said, "but I've picked her up from school every day this week, and she has been in tears. And as a mother, that has just been so devastating for me. But today, I picked her up from school and she ran up to the car with the biggest smile on her face, and she was flying a kite, and she shared her joy with her mum of how much fun it had been making these kites and flying the kites." And that was just a beautiful story to hear, and it made me realize that what I was doing was more important than just flying a kite, that a kite is therapy, and teaching these kids to find joy by doing something outside instead of staying on their computer games indoors. Another parent came up to me and said, "My kids normally come home and play computer games, and today they went outside and they were flying their kites out in the fresh air." Again, it just felt so good, and it made me realize that I was definitely on the right path, by sharing my passion for wind and kites and knowledge with others, including these little kids.
Yeah, I think that's important. There's a book called From Strength to Strength. Have you ever heard of that book before? It's by a guy named Arthur C. Brooks, and it's such a cool book. And it talks about finding success and happiness in the second part of your life when you can't do the things that you used to be able to do. So you might check out that book and do it. So what's next? If you've probably the best way is you can go to your website. It's Adrenajen, and that's ADRENA GEN.com. And that's really a good start because you've got a YouTube that you kind of talk about kites. And I'm imagining that's a pretty niche. Is it niche or niche? Niche? What do you say? How do they say it in Australia? Is it niche or niche?
I say niche. Say niche. But
Yeah.
every business class I go to, nobody really knows how to say it. Nobody knows.
It's like
You
these
just kind of
French
slur
words,
it out there. Like, yeah, it's niche.
Vase and vase.
Vase.
Which one is it?
That's like a different type of person.
We should just jettison the
Vase.
French stuff and just get rid of it. Nobody knows how to pronounce it, but it's pretty cool. If you go to your website, you can see you can click on videos, or you can just go to YouTube, and on YouTube, your channel is called Adrenajen Snow Kiting, and you can kind of see all your stuff, all your videos there. But you can go to the website and it'll link back to the YouTube as well.
I got some cool reels on Instagram too. You'll find me under Adrenajen everywhere. And just to confirm, it's ADRENAJEN, J like for Jenny. So
Did I
You
say
can.
G?
You did say
Oh
G. That's
gosh,
why
I'm
I'm
the
just
worst.
just reminding everybody it's a
Yeah,
J so that you can
it's a,
find me. But it is a small niche. There's only a small amount of adrenaline junkies who love to ski and snowboard that want to learn how to snow kite. And there's only a small amount of people who want to be towed into the waves with a kite. But you know what I'm really trying to promote is that kites are for everybody. And I actually wrote a story this week for Wounded Warriors, which is a military program you guys might know
yeah.
of, and they love flying kites, and it's amazing the joy that kites bring people, even if you're just flying a one line kite. And I mentioned to you guys earlier, one of my favorite kites right now is this 26-foot purple octopus. And it's just got one line, and I can stand on the beach and fly it because I wasn't able to kite surf this summer. And it's amazing what a kite does to us. It connects us to nature, it gives us joy. And so the niche of flying kites is huge if we look at it in that
Oh
respect,
yeah, yeah,
rather than just the small niche of adrenaline junkies that want to do the extreme sports side of it.
yeah. They fly just because we've been there multiple times in Afghanistan. It's kites are a big deal. It's a big deal over there. So, um,
Is
so
there real quick, is there a road to recovery? Like, or did you have to put up like kite surfing and kite skiing for good? Or is it still kind of up in the air, I guess, so to speak? Pun
So
intended, I
Tyler,
guess.
I've told you a lot of stories. What do you think? Do you think I've given up on my
Oh, no, I know you.
potential?
Yeah.
I still believe I'm going to get back to my sport.
Yeah.
I'm sure my surgeon isn't too excited about it, but
You're like a
and I'm
doctor's worst nightmare. You walk in, they're like, "Hey, you shouldn't." You're like, "Well, I'm going to," and they're like, "Yeah, but you shouldn't." You're like, "Yeah, but I'm going to."
but I have made, I made the decision that I can't go back to my sport until I've gotten the AOK. One of the things about I've had 3 brain surgeries this year is I'm on really strong blood thinners, which means
Okay.
that even chopping vegetables for dinner is now an adrenaline activity. If I cut myself, it can be life threatening. So I'm not going to go back to my sport until I'm okay. In February, I'll have another angiogram and check to see how those stents and coils, which are fixing my problem, are healing. And at that point, if they're looking good, I come off the blood thinners. And my doctor said, you might get back to your skiing, Jen. So I am still hoping, dreaming, manifesting, visualizing that I will get back to my sports, and you'll have to have me on next year so I can tell you some more stories of where I got
Yeah,
to.
you got to make it across Greenland, right?
yeah,
I still have that as a goal. I'm not giving up
Yeah.
on that goal yet. Yep, the fat lady has not sung.
Nope, not at all. Not even
yeah.
close.
I think that would be pretty cool. We should definitely do that again. So let's make sure we got everything. So the best way to find you is we'll link to all this in the show notes if you want to check out Jen's website. It's Adrenajen with a J, not the G. That was a Freudian slip because growing up, my neighbor or friend of the family was Jenny with a G. So I
That's unusual. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so we'll link to the website, to your YouTube channel, and all your socials, and go over and check out if you're interested in getting into snow kiting and kite surfing or kiteboarding. It's kind of a one-stop shop. You can really you've got a subject matter expert kind of at your you could probably argue you're one of the OGs of kite
You're
snow kiting, right?
the expert.
Yeah, you should just
I
say you're the expert.
Yeah, you are the expert. Number
I
one.
I do have I am one of the original snow kiters out there, and I was very honored the other day to have a Wikipedia post about me and snow kiting, which was really cool. And if you're not interested in those extreme sports, I'd love to come and talk at an event. If you know of somebody that's running an event and would like to have a speaker come and tell some stories and inspire people, I have a great keynote where I teach those lessons from extreme sports that I've got to help other people overcome their extreme challenges in life. I really have a huge passion for wanting to help people and share my story. So I hope I can continue doing that. And reach out to me if you'd like to book me as a speaker, and also share my children's book with kids. Let's give
absolutely.
kids courage and get them outside flying kites.
Yeah, we'll put all that in the show notes, and you've also got a blog on your website. If you go on the website, if you're a snow person, if you're a winter sports enthusiast, you can go on there, and there's like gear guides and all that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool because I'm way out of my element, but we are trying to go ski this winter. We want to go skiing, so we'll see. My wife wants to get back out there, so we'll see if we can make it happen. So that's adrenajen.com. You can check it out there. Go to the YouTube channel. It's Adrenajen Snow Kiting. You can check it out there. And the book website is Gale and the redkite.com. You can go there. Take your kids there, show them how to make a kite. You can just click on there, and it's pretty cool. It's a DIY. You can download the instructions and make a kite. Fun fact, when I was a kid, probably between 5 and 12 years old, my granddad taught us how to make kites out of newspapers, and we used to make newspaper kites all the time. And we'd put like these little, rattle, tails on them and fly them all the time. So I did it as a kid all the time, and we would use fishing line to put them up there because we didn't have any like real string. So it's a cool thing you can do with your kids. Take them out there, get them moving around, and then you can read to them. It's a cool book. So, and you can find Jen on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And are you on LinkedIn? I am. You're on LinkedIn too.
I am on LinkedIn. Yeah, so just slightly newer to LinkedIn, but you'll find me there for sure.
I might also reach out to you at some point because me and a couple of buddies, we dabble in adventure racing every now and then, and there's a 5-day adventure race across Alaska, and we need some ropes on mountain skills to make sure that we don't fall in any holes, and if we do it correctly.
I'd love to help you guys out.
Yeah, we're looking for an adult to teach us how to survive. And it sounds like you're pretty good at surviving.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
Yeah, this was actually just an interview just to see. Yeah. So I think
you're hired.
Yeah, you're hired. You checked the block.
Love that.
So, well, Jen, thank you so much. And before we close, is there something that you want to? If there's one thing people could get out of this, what's Jen Milton's one thing that you want to tell the world? And I'm put you on the spot there, so no pressure.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would like to share with the world that we all experience fear, and we are going to have a natural primal response to fear, especially if you're charged by a wild animal. But in this modern world, we feel that same fear with some modern challenges. We have a fear of not being good enough. We have a fear of public speaking. We have a fear of relationships. There's so many fears out there that are holding us back. And I would love to see people see that fear as a challenge. Fear's never going to go away. I'm not fearless by any count. Fear is always going to be there, but maybe fear is something that you'll actually enjoy, because when you feel that fear and you can find the courage to push through it, that's where you're going to find confidence. That's where you're going to succeed, and that's where you're going to win. and find success in life no matter what you're doing.
You have probably one of the most contagious personalities of anybody I've ever talked to before. And I like that.
Oh, Tyler, thank you so much. That was a good, lovely compliment. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just pure positivity through and through. And I don't think I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who carries as much positivity as you do. Like legitimate. And people will say that, hey, I'm a positive person, think positive thoughts and 10x your life, but they don't really know what that means.
Thank you so much. That's one of the most beautiful compliments I've ever had. I appreciate that a lot. I'm so grateful for you saying that, Tyler. That
no problem.
Makes me feel super, super warm and fuzzy inside.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't really have any way to follow that up. I think that's you slammed it there. That's perfect. So, and most people won't be able to see this because we're not doing video, but it really, like, if you could see Jen's mannerisms, it's I want to stop short of like classic Aussie, but she really is this excited. Like, I think there's a genuine excitedness, and you can hear it in her voice. So, but Jen, thank you so much for spending. We're almost at 2.0. We're an hour and 55 into this, so
that went quick.
Yeah,
that was really fun.
Yeah,
that was really fun chatting with you guys. Yeah, I loved it. We
want to get you back and see where you're at in maybe a year. And
probably like an annual installment, because I'm sure a year in your life is filled with 40 years of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, like the fact that you did all that stuff in your late 40s, I'm thinking like, man, I got to really...
Yeah, I got 10 years till I got to start, you know?
Yeah.
Life's not over when you...
No, not even close.
Either.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight, and we really appreciate it. And looking forward to seeing what's next for you. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you. I'm so grateful, and I hope all your listeners enjoyed hearing those stories and found some great inspiration and value out of me today.
If they're not inspired or excited by those stories, then they don't have a pulse, I think, is what it boils down to. There's no way.
You don't have an excuse if you're hearing this.
Yeah.
Get out there. Do good things. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks, Jen.
Looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, me too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.